Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? How is the form? It's the preview show for this weekend's All-Ireland Senior Football Championship action. We're going to be taking a look at both provincial finals in this stream. So we're going to be predicting and previewing both of the football games that are taking place this weekend. We've got Kerry versus Clare. We've got Mayo versus Galway as well. We're going to try to keep the preview a little bit short and sweet, but nonetheless, look, two very interesting games. Mayo versus Galway is obviously the game that I think is going to whet the appetite amongst most people, given the fact that it is two very bitter rivals, but it's two teams that are playing more or less at a similar level. I mean, you could argue Galway have certainly, progressed a bit more than Mayo over the last couple of years, but even at that, the distance between the two sides probably shouldn't be as significant as what we would imagine between Kerry and Clare. Albeit, though, this year's championship has absolutely thrown up a number of shocks, a number of surprises. And, I don't think Clare will beat Kerry, don't get me wrong. But a lot of the games we thought that would be very one-sided, and a lot of games that we thought that would be formalities haven't proven that way. And, maybe there is a chance for Clare to potentially do a little bit of something there. But, yeah, do let me know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below. There have been some team news announcements as well ahead of the game, so we'll have a look. Some counties haven't announced their teams yet, but the Kerry team has been announced and the Galway team has been announced as well, so we'll kind of run through some of those details. We'll start with the Kerry versus Clare game, and then we'll come on to Mayo versus Galway. As I was saying, you would expect Kerry to win. The fact that Kerry got such a bit of a fright of their life really against Cork and managed to come through it, I can't see them making the same errors or the same kind of mistakes defensively as they did in that Cork game. I don't think ill discipline will get the better of them this time around with, Paddy Clifford's red card. I don't think they'll make the same mistakes, and I think they should really outweigh the quality of Clare. Look, Clare do have some very good forwards, and without doubt, they have some players there that can kick 2-pointers. I mean, the likes of Owen Cleary, Emmett McMahon, very, very good player. Keelan Sexton as well. Ironically enough, I actually ran into him on the train coming back from the Dublin game, but he's a very good player as well, and he could absolutely do damage in this game. And he actually did feel a little bit confident about potentially, taking a scalp. But as you should, to be fair, you should always be confident when you take to the field. Aaron Griffin as well, to be fair, is a very good footballer. So they have players there, but you would just expect Kerry there. Like, it's multiple things. Look, it's the quality of their players in terms of David Clifford, Paul Gainey, Dylan Gainey. Paddy Clifford, I think, will be suspended for this game, but they should be okay without him. Sean O'Shea, you'd imagine, might start this game. Came off the bench the last day versus Cork, so that could obviously be a little bit significant if he starts. But in terms of attack and talent, they should have far more, and I think around the middle as well. I mean, Joe O'Connor was outstanding the last day versus Cork. We saw that goal that he scored when he put it, in the roof of the net. So he's an outstanding player, and you would expect him to do the damage. And I think for Kerry in general, look, there might be an element of Kerry a little bit maybe holding themselves back a little bit to try and sort of peak later on in the championship. I think that has been a very common occurrence under Jack O'Connor and Kerry, even as far back as 2009, and they nearly lost to, it was a Limerick, I think, in a Munster final, and then those games against Sligo and Antrim where they looked a little bit bare. But even, last season at times they looked a little bit sluggish throughout Munster in seasons previous as well. And to be fair, look, I don't think they were. I think it was more about Cork being brilliant in that game, but there definitely were vulnerabilities defensively, and they were probably dragged from pillar to post at different stages, and probably didn't have the physicality that you would normally associate with a Kerry team. They did seem kind of very light, in particular around their half-back line. Like, we didn't really see the influence of Gavin White, even Jason Foley, Paul Murphy as well, kind of racing up the field. But you would expect them to be far too strong. Look, as I said, this championship has been a little bit mad and a little bit crazy, and maybe if Clare can start strong and start fast and take a bit of a leaf out of Meade's book in terms of how well they started, but I think Kerry are a far superior team than Dublin, and I don't think Kerry make them same mistakes. And the fact as well is that, they had their fright, they had a shock against Cork. If they go out and then they're sluggish in this game as well, then maybe then you can be a little bit concerned about Kerry. But they'll be far too strong, in my opinion. In terms of the team news, so the Kerry team was announced as well, and we'll throw it up on the screen as well so people can see it there. So Shane Murphy's the man starting in goal. The full back line is Dylan Casey, Jason Foley, and Tom O'Sullivan. Brian O'Buglock, Mike Breen, and Gavin White make up the half-back line. Joe O'Connor and Barry Dan O'Sullivan in the half-back line. You've got Tony Brosnan, Sean O'Shea, and Micheál Burns in the half-forward line. David Clifford, Paul Gainey, and Dylan Gainey in the full forward line. And even looking at the bench there as well, you've got Conor Gainey, I think, who can come off the bench. Maybe Rory Murphy as well. Killian Spillane is a very good operator as well. He's been feels like a super sub for quite a while with Kerry, to be fair. But having no Shane Ryan, I suppose, would be a bit of a blow. He was obviously injured, so not having him available, I think, will be a bit of a blow. I think you'd be fine for this game, but you will obviously hope that he is back. By the time maybe the group stages come around or later in the year. You've got Tom O'Sullivan. Or actually, you've got Tom O'Sullivan starting. You've got the other Tom O'Sullivan, Tom Leo O'Sullivan there, in the side as well, or on the bench there as well. So, look, I'm going to say Kerry win the game. I'm going to say 8 points. It could be more. It could be less as well. It just depends on if Clare can get Owen Cleary in the right position to kick 2-pointers. It didn't feel like Kerry were able to defend those 2-pointers. I mean, they are very hard to defend at times. And I think there's not many teams who have probably mastered the art of defending the arc and sort of stopping those 2-pointers, because you then inadvertently leave space in behind. But yeah, like it will be interesting to see if Owen Cleary, Keelan Sexton, Emmett McMahon, if you can get those players on the ball, if they have the game of their lives, maybe they can make this a little bit more narrower than we expect. But you would have to imagine that Clare would be far too strong. A2 says, missed the reaction to the draw. Dublin are so fucked. I reckon maybe Clonus for the Derry game. Potentially maybe Clonus. Someone actually mentioned in the comments as well that Newry could be a good shout, so that could potentially be there. It's not looking good from a Dublin perspective, but we'll see what happens when that draw comes around. Shane says, nice to see Killian Trant back on the panel. Absolutely. I wouldn't be too familiar with him myself, but the name does sound familiar. So I'm not too sure if he was like a really good underage player, maybe had an injury or something of that nature. But look, it's it's a strong bench. It's got good players there, players that can definitely make an impact as well. And even looking at the last day for Clare as well, just looking at some of the players against Tipperary who came off the bench for them. Like you've got Gavin Murray there who can come off the bench, Daniel Walsh. Even like looking at it, I mean, you've got Ika Maguero who had a very good game against Kerry last year. Maybe he could be a player that comes off the bench. We'll obviously wait and see. The Clare team hasn't been announced yet, so we'll wait and see what happens there. But some potential players to come in there. Mayo versus Galway then is the big one happening in Castlebar. Something else I should have mentioned with Kerry versus Clare. It is in Fitzgerald Stadium in Killarney as well, which I think makes it even more of a formality, in my opinion. I think the game last year was in Ennis, and Clare did make a good go of that. Happening in Killarney. This is taking place in Castlebar. Actually, the first Connacht final to be in Castlebar, I think, since 2014, which is kind of mad as well. But you look, big game for both of these two. I think it's a chance for Mayo to silence the doubters a little bit, really step up, show what they're made of. They didn't kick a single 2-pointer against either Leitrim or Sligo, which was a little bit bizarre. Very sluggish across both of the games. Combined aggregate, margin of victory of 10 points against a Division 3 side and a relegated Division 4 side. And albeit, look, Leitrim played well, Sligo played well. We should give them their credit. But Mayo, like, whilst they had some good moments in the league, they are a very hard team to understand at times. Like, I think Ryan O'Donoghue is a phenomenal footballer, one of the best sharpshooters in the country, in my opinion. But aside from him, there just doesn't appear to be a lot within the Mayo team. And I think Aidan O'Shea is a brilliant ball carrier. He's a physical forward. He's a player who's going to occupy space. He's going to make, he's going to be an absolute handful for the man who's picking him up. But he's not, he's not a scorer. He's not going to get you 4, 5, 6 points a game, in my opinion. Maybe there was a time when he was that player. I don't think he's that player anymore. And there definitely is maybe a bit of a lack of threat within this within this Mayo side, especially in comparison to Galway. Like, you've got Jordan Flynn, who's a decent enough player, to be fair, and he certainly has his moments. Matthew Rowan, I've always been a big fan of around the middle. Jack Carney's a decent player as well, but they're just lacking like clinical and brilliant forwards, and especially with the likes of Cillian O'Connor retire and James Carr leaving the panel, I believe, as well. They don't really have a huge amount of attacking options, I think, in comparison to Galway, who even the last day were without Shane Walsh, were without Damien Comer. And we'll get to Galway's team now in a moment, but you've got Robert Finnerty, you've got Killian McDade, you've got Matthew Turney, you've got Paul Conroy, who's phenomenal. I just think they've got far more players, and they've got players who have been kicking 2-pointers on a regular basis, who are confident in kicking 2-pointers. And I think defensively, they were, maybe they were a little bit suspect at times of the league. Maybe the new rules, they need to kind of figure things out a little bit there. But I think, to be fair, they've been, they were brilliant against Roscommon and sort of keeping them out in terms of goals or anything of that nature. So it is going to be interesting to see how that pans out. A2 says, Loud under 20s winning, unbelievable work they're putting in, maybe a sign of things to come. Yeah, absolutely brilliant for the Loud under 20s, and I think they're playing Mayo next. Shane says he started against Donegal in the league. This is his first year on the panel. Been brilliant for his club the last few years. Yeah, cheers for letting us know there. A2 says Galway could give Mayo a real hiding. Has the feeling of that as well, doesn't it? I think Mayo, given the fact it's a Connacht final and the rivalry, I think they have to step up, and they will perform a lot better than they did against Leitrim and Sligo. I think they have to. I mean, if they produce that same level of performance, they'll be beaten at an absolute canter. They absolutely will be. And let's not forget, I think they were leading by 2 points in injury time in last year's final. Like, they had the game dead and buried, and it was the same old thing with Mayo, not able to close out a tight game. But I feel like Galway have definitely improved since then. And it feels like Mayo, whether they've regressed, it's hard to know, but whether they've actually improved, I'm not sure. But we'll see what happens. Nerb says Connacht final 2023 was in Castlebar, Galway, Sligo. Oh, well, there you go. Maybe it's Mayo's first final since 2013 and 2014 in Castlebar. I thought I read that somewhere earlier. But yeah, in terms of the team news, so we'll throw the Galway team up on the screen, or we will throw it up on the screen in a moment. I thought I uploaded it on here, but apparently I didn't. So I don't know what happened there. But yeah, it is going to be interesting, to be fair, to see. Like, even just looking at the team as well, in terms of a Galway perspective. It will be interesting to see what kind of I thought I had the team there, but maybe it's disappeared on me there. That's great. But yeah, look, I mean, it will be interesting to see the likes of a Shane Walsh or Damien Comer. Will they be available? Actually, just looking at it here, I think I had the complete wrong Galway team. So apologies for that there. I actually don't think the Galway team has been announced. But look, we'll see obviously what Galway team does get announced on the day when it does come around. Will Shane Walsh play? Will Damien Comer play? That's obviously going to be the big question. It part of me feels like they'll actually be fine without them, to be honest with you. I feel like they should be okay even without them, given how well they played against the Rossies, in my opinion. And yes, obviously they did have Damien Comer, who came off the bench for the last 10 minutes, but I think they're far superior, Galway. I think they're far superior with players like John Maher as well. Defensively, like Dylan McHugh. Could Jack Glynn maybe do a job on Ryan O'Donoghue, or maybe that might be Johnny McGrath. So I think they're far superior in that element. And I think if you can keep O'Donoghue quiet, you've done half the battle to stopping Mayo, in my opinion. But look, it is a chance for Mayo to step up. Mayo are always the type of team that when they're underdogs, when they're written off, they have this habit of turning up and sort of making you swallow your words. And, even look at the start of the league, for example. They were very poor at the start of the league. They actually lost to Galway by 10 points, and they were really, really poor on that particular occasion. And then they went on a brilliant run towards the end of the league, eventually getting to a final. So they're not a bad team, but I just think Galway are far superior at this moment in time. So in terms of a prediction, then I'm going to go for a 5-point win for Galway, and I think it will be a relatively comfortable win as well. A bit like the Roscommon game, maybe with a bit more of a smaller margin. But I think Galway should be far too strong. Like, even looking at the midfield battle as well of Paul Conroy, maybe up against Matthew Rowan. I mean, what a tasty battle that could be. But I just think Galway will be far too superior there. And even when you're looking at options off the bench as well, like when you're looking at Galway's bench, they can bring players. You've got the likes of Colin Sweeney, who can come off the bench. Tom O'Callaghan's a good player off the bench. I mean, they brought Damien Comer off the bench the last day. You've got a lot of options there who can come off the bench from a Galway perspective. And even looking at Mayo's potential bench options, like this, I mean, you've got Fergal Boland, Frank Irwin, maybe Paul Towie, Owen McLaughlin. Like, doesn't appear to be, and just looking at their team versus Leitrim the last day, maybe there'd be bigger players who will come in who maybe didn't play that day. But it's just going to be interesting to see from a Mayo perspective what type of players they can sort of bring on to make a difference. Maybe an Owen O'Donoghue could come on. Just looking at it against Sligo, Fergal Boland came off the bench that day. But I think Galway overall will be far too superior in my opinion, and they should have enough to win the game quite comfortably. So do let me know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below. Let us know what you think will happen in both of these two games. I am going to go for Galway and Clare. Wow, Galway and Kerry. That would be quite the twist, wouldn't it? I've had some mad predictions down the years. We won't go as far as that, though. Although the way this championship is going, who knows? But no, we will go with Galway and Kerry to win their respective provincial championships. Just a quick preview. We'll definitely do a more in-depth preview, I think, for the Ulster final and Leinster final next weekend, because would have been Meath versus Louth, and of course the big Ulster final as well, which is always a massive encounter. But yeah, do let me know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below, and until the next one, we'll speak to y'all later.